Okay, Hawk, thank you. Yeah. Pray for Barbara Crow. Her health has been in decline for a while. Yeah, thank you, buddy. Benny? Uh, okay, she did. Yeah, pray for Debbie S. You can remember that easier than Schmachtenberger. No, we love Debbie. We will pray for her and for you, Benny. Thank you. April. Oh, oh wow. Okay. Okay. Well, I've been praying a long time for Scarlett, and that's progress. It didn't really look like she was going to make it at all. So, thank you for keeping us posted, Helen. Hmm. Get it scheduled. Yeah. Pray for Danny and his back and hips. But yeah, we need to get this moving. So thank you, Helen. Pray for Danny and Helen. All right, thank you. I know that it may not be easy to remember all these various prayer requests, but please be faithful to, as you think about them, just pray for these people. Let them know that you're praying for them, and that'll be an encouragement to them. But ask that the Lord's will would be done in all these various situations. All right. Ernie, would you mind praying for us today, please? I'm sorry, I said Ernie and looked right at Benny. That's who I meant. Benny, would you mind praying for us? Go ahead. Amen. Thank you, Benny. And the reason I said Ernie is Ernie's sitting right behind you. Ernie Brown, God bless you, brother. It's great to have you visiting with us from Ames, Iowa. He is on staff up there at Heartland Baptist in Ames, a great church. He told me that he was able to visit Kevin and Stacy in Wales. When was that, Ernie? In July? Yeah, awesome. And they probably bragged about the fact we had just been there in June. Okay, good. If they hadn't have mentioned it, they'd have been getting a FaceTime from me. But God bless you, my brother. Glad you're here for the BCMN, and glad you get to stay with us today. God bless you. And Laura Kelly. God bless you, Laura. It's nice to have you visiting our Sunday school class. Laura's been visiting our church, but please make her feel right at home. Thank you for being our honored guest, Laura. And it's good to see you all. My heart's encouraged, and we're glad that you're here for the culmination of our missions conference. We will be studying today in Numbers 20, and I'd invite your attention to that portion of God's Word. and we will get there momentarily. Numbers chapter 20. A great story from the Word of God that teaches us some valuable principles about obedience and disobedience. But related to that, related to obedience and disobedience, the opportunity today for all of us to be involved in faith promise. We've been talking about this. You've been introduced to some wonderful missionaries. Some of the missionaries that were part of this month's emphasis have been our own missionaries. In fact, Adam and Ayla Cottrell are here today from Thailand. And so that's where my granddaughter works with them and the Salmons. But it's been a blessing to see the outreach of our church over the years through your faithfulness in giving to the cause of worldwide missions. And I don't know about you, but it just seems like there's an intensity in the world that the need is greater than ever. It's greater than ever just because the population of the world is greater. But it's just hard not to recognize evil so rampant around the globe. And when we think about the coming of the Lord and time is growing short, I think there's an urgency to us needing to invest more than ever in the cause of worldwide missions. And I just want to encourage you to increase your faith a little bit. I appreciate Pastor and others who have shared that just incrementally over the years, we've just been able to increase our faith a little bit, give a little more, and at this point, we're able to give so much more than we ever thought we could to the cause of missions. And then, just on a personal note, I know John Conrup and Pam have been involved in missions so directly with a huge responsibility as the director of the Baptist Bible Fellowship Missions Agency. It's just an amazing outreach. But Pam's got a different perspective on missions this year. Connie and I have a different perspective on missions this year. It's one thing to give to the cause of missions and say, yes, I'm helping send the gospel around the world to missionaries. Some I know and some I don't know that well, but I'm investing in that outreach and the fruit that they have to their account. We get to be a part of that. But when you have your own kids, McMurphys, they have a daughter and family, grandkids in Thailand. We're talking about this new endeavor for Bethany and Elliot and Eden in South Africa. But that's a whole different level of investment when you actually say all those years, go give to missions and send your kids to be missionaries, and then it happens. And they respond to the call of God, and with Kevin and Stacy and his girls, my granddaughters, in Wales, it's just a different level of understanding what the need is. And so I don't want to just single out a couple that come to my mind, but I do think that what is before us with an urgency for the ministry, and maybe, Jesus said that there's a need for us to pray for the Lord to thrust laborers into the harvest, but Jesus also said that work, for the night is coming when no man shall work. And I just believe, and I'm that committed to the fact that we are on a potentially short time before the Lord comes back. And when that happens, things will change dramatically in the world, and the opportunities that we have will certainly not exist, because we'll be in heaven with Jesus, and the chance for us to make this impact on worldwide missions will be gone for us. So I hope that you will get involved. Pastor will be explaining the opportunity for us to be involved in Faith Promise missions. I want to commend our Sunday school class because over the years, this group has just done so remarkably well in supporting missionaries and the cause of missions. And I hope that you'll just increase your faith a little bit more and do more than ever before for the cause of Jesus, okay? All right, with that in mind, please turn to chapter 20 of the book of Numbers. And we're going to be parked here for just a little while looking at the first really 13 verses. But this is a very unusual story, and but it's got some principles and truths that we should glean from, okay? Numbers 20. How many of you would be in one of these two camps? How many of you would be people who would follow instructions? If you were assembling something, you would get out the instruction sheet and look at all that and put it and carefully and very punctiliously make sure everything went exactly where it's supposed to go. How many would do that? Okay, so there are some people who are rule followers and follow instructions. How many of you, I can do it myself. Yeah, there are some of us like that, okay? You know, generally, those of us who raised our hand in the second category, and we kind of take things on ourselves and say, I'll just do it this way. I think it'll work. All of us have probably experienced that, putting something together only to realize there's 8 or 10 extra pieces laying there that's supposed to be somewhere. And I remember fishing one time with my friend Paul Savage up in Lake Erie. We were going to catch walleye, and they had a new lure out that was supposed to guarantee walleye. Well, we wanted that. So we tied on these beautiful lures called Erie Dearies. I don't even think Mike knows what an Erie Dearie is. Maybe he's seen one in my tackle box. But these, you put a night crawler on the end of this spinner, and you throw it out there, and you reel that in, and walleye just pound it. Well, we were throwing Erie Dearies for about 2 hours. Didn't get a bite. In fact, I got so discouraged, I sat down in the boat and picked up the packaging that it came out of. So I say to my friend Paul, let's do this. Follow the instructions. Cast your Erie Dearie out, let it go to the bottom. Okay? Reel 5 times fast, 5 times slow. 5 times fast, 5 times slow. And he catches a nice walleye. I stood up, grabbed my rod, now that I know the instructions, and we started fishing that exactly the way we were supposed to fish it, and we started catching walleye all the time. It was amazing. Biggest lesson I ever learned about follow the instructions. Well, in our story today, we're going to come to a very interesting event in the life of Moses, who has been leading the children of Israel for the entire time since the Exodus, and we're now approaching the end of the 40 years in the wilderness. It's not going to be long until they're able to go in and conquer like they were supposed to so many years earlier. The vast majority of the group had died off in the wilderness, but now they're still facing these challenges, and we've seen several occasions in the book of Numbers where the people are grumbling. They're complaining. Oh, we long for the days back in Egypt when we had all the goodies, right? But they forgot the baddies. And that was, they were slaves in Egypt. And so we come to this passage, the years of wandering. Miriam passes away in this 40-year period. And now we come to one of those other crisis moments where the people are going to complain about Moses and his leadership, and really they're going to complain about God. So here's the problem that we read about in verses 2 through 5, and this is what it says. And there was no water for the congregation, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. And the people chode with Moses and spake, saying, Would God that we had died when our brethren died before the Lord. And why have ye brought up the congregation of the Lord into this wilderness, that we and our cattle should die here? And wherefore have ye made us to come up out of Egypt, to bring us into this evil place? It is no place of seed or figs or of vines or of pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink. Okay. The Sinai Peninsula really is a forbidden place. I mean, it is so arid, so dry, rocks, and just very little vegetation at all. It is truly a wilderness desert. And now, all the way back in Exodus 17, we had another situation where they came out into the wilderness, had gone quite a bit into the desert region, and again, they had no water. And they cried out then against Moses and against God. But what was it that God told Moses to do in that first episode where they needed water and there was no water to be found anywhere? What did God instruct Moses to do? Not speak. The first time it was strike the rock. Remember? Yeah, so we're talking about speaking to the rock here. Okay, the second time. So in that instance, and they had seen the miracle, and they stayed where that miracle provided water for a long time. But God instructed Moses to hit the rock with his staff. And when he did, the rock just gushed open, and water enough water for all the people, for all the animals, and they plentifully drank and stayed there for a while because of the abundance of water. Now, we're many years removed from that. And once again, they've come to a spot where there's no water. God had provided water at all these other places. At Sinai and other places along their travels, they had found springs or oasis or whatever. But now they're traveling, and they've come to a place where there's no water. And so they begin to grumble and complain. And did you see that word? We don't use that word very often. They chode against Moses and Aaron. What do you think that means? Okay. Yeah, there's all of these. There's this grumbling attitude, this moaning. They're certainly questioning, why did you do? But this was a quarrelsome thing. They were very upset. And what were some of the things that you noticed as we read this that the people were mad about? Certainly the lack of water. What else? Okay. They're remembering how good they had it back in Egypt. Do you ever fall into that nostalgic situation where you try to remember, the good old days? Really the good old days weren't all that great. We have so many more blessings and benefits and luxuries than we used to have in the good old days. However, it's easy to remember the good things of the good old days, but we sometimes forget the bad things. They forgot they were slaves in Egypt, and yet they grumbled, complained, quarreled with Moses and Aaron about, why did you bring us out here to die? We would have been better off dying with our brethren. And that could be in reference to the people who died in Egypt and never got out. Or it could be in reference to the episode we read about earlier in Numbers. You remember where Korah and Dathan and Abihu, they stood up against Moses and Aaron and literally tried a rebellion against them. And what did God do in that instance? Yeah, that's when the earth opened up and a whole bunch of them just fell into this cavern, and it closed back up on them, and everybody just stood there with their mouth been in rebellion against God directly and died at that time rather than come out to this difficult circumstance. What else did you see in it? What were they worried about? Yeah. Yeah. Well, manna, with just brush it off a little bit. But April. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Don't forget, this is the very same group of people who are now being judged by 40 years of wandering in the wilderness because they were the ones that voted, no, we don't want to go in. Caleb and Joshua said, when the 12 spies went in, Caleb and Joshua said, we'll have no trouble with God doing this. But the other 10 said, we're like grasshoppers in their sight. We can't do it. And these are the people who voted in favor with the 10 and said, we won't go. And now, what you said, Frank, is they would have had pomegranates and figs and vines, grapevines. All of that would have already been theirs if they had gone into the land of promise, the land flowing with milk and honey. But no, they refused. And now they're in the period of judgment where they're mad at Moses and Aaron and God for bringing them to this point, right? Yes, Dan. Yep. Yep. And they had completely forgotten what their bondage was like, how harsh that judgment was. So much so that God judged Egypt for how poorly he had treated his people. Okay, so this is the problem defined. It's this issue of we are in desperate, difficult circumstances, and why did you bring us out here to begin with? Well, I want you to see in the next couple verses a plan is unfolding, and it's God that's providing the plan. Notice verses 6 through 8. And Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they fell upon their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto them. All right. Very important lesson here. When faced with this rebellious challenge, Moses and Aaron did the right thing. They went and prayed, right? They went to the tabernacle. It says here, the tabernacle of the congregation, or the tent of meeting, the tabernacle where the Holy of Holies was and where the Ark of the Covenant was. And they went to the entrance of the tabernacle and fell before the Lord, and they began to pray. I think most of us understand, at least in principle, that should be our first course of action when we face difficult circumstances. Go to God. And that was Aaron and Moses' option. That's what they opted for. And so they fall before the tabernacle. And what's usually before the tabernacle? What's usually over the tabernacle? Yeah, pillar of cloud by day, right? Pillar of fire by night. And so Moses and Aaron go there, and they fall on their faces. Just one of those circumstances where some of us get to from time to time, where it's just no option except to pour out our heart to God in a humble way, and that's exemplified by them falling on their face. And the glory of the Lord appeared unto them. The smoke of the cloud filled the tabernacle, but the Lord spake out of the cloud, out of his glory, right? Take the rod. Now, we don't know what to make of this. When God spoke, it could be that all those people that are outside around may have heard the voice. I'm more inclined to think it was like when the Apostle Paul on the Damascus Road and the light struck him down, and he heard the voice of Jesus clearly. The people who were outside of it, they heard a voice, they heard noise, but they couldn't make it out. I don't know what to say for sure. To me, if these people had actually heard the voice of God speaking to Moses, I really don't think they would have continued acting in rebellion. I think it would have scared them to death. I think they may have heard something. I don't want to make a point one way or the other about it, but it's hard for me to believe that had they actually heard the audible voice of God speaking to Moses clearly, that they probably would have backed down pretty quick, realizing the very presence of God and his entire essence of glory is on display here. But the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take the rod, gather thou the assembly together, thou and Aaron thy brother, and speak unto the rock before their eyes. And it shall give forth his water, and thou shalt bring forth to them, missed a page, water out of the rock, so thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts to drink. That's one thing I wanted to point out. When they were complaining to Moses at the beginning about no pomegranates and all that, but they also said at the end of verse 4 that we and our cattle should die there. Do you bring us out here so we would all die and our cattle? And I thought, wow, interesting and curious that they would be concerned about material things. Usually when you come to a point where your own life is what's threatened, that's usually what you're worried about. They're worried even about their cattle. God answers that question too in verse 8 and says at the end there, and thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts drink. So there's going to be plenty of water for all of them. But this is an interesting difference from the first time, because God told Moses the first time they needed water out of a rock to hit it with his staff. This time, he uniquely says, I want you to speak to the rock. Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about that and get your insights as well. But what you probably need to comprehend is what so much of the Sinai desert is. And that is these big rock boulders that really make a mountain of rocks. The face of the rock, it's a huge thing, probably part of a mountain that they're camped at. It's right there. If you've ever traveled in the Southwest, you have seen some of these rock formations, very uniquely piles of these huge rocks, but some of them are massive stones. And that appears to be where they're camped. They're all looking at these rocks. And I believe Moses gets up on the rock above all the people in order to perform this miracle that God is going to perform. And so, why do you think God said, speak to the rock? Seems a little Okay. Say again. Okay. Okay. Good, Helen. Yes, he does say, take the rod, but speak to the rock. And you're exactly right, Dennis. For Moses to have obeyed and have just spoken to the rock, God didn't tell him what to say, but it's not hard to believe what they had been rehearsing from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 to 9. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. It's not hard to believe he would not have maybe just said the words of the Shema. Hear, O Israel. And God didn't tell him what to say. But there is such a lapse in Moses' judgment that he doesn't do this. And I think it's exactly what you said, Dennis, that if he had followed through and done what God told him to do and just speak to the rock, that God would have gushed forth the water, and there would have only been one person that would have been glorified in all this, and it would have been God. Because Moses talking to a rock, I mean, he could do that for a long time and not water come out, but it was going to be God that did it, right? Okay, so let's look at the result, and we'll close today. But in the following verses, verse 9 and following, we're going to see the result. But the result is distrust that leads to disobedience. How many times had Moses seen God work the miraculous? And when Moses did what God told him to do, miraculous things happened. But in this instance, Moses is going to distrust what the Lord said. And it's going to result in disobedience, even though God is going to still be gracious. All right, let's read it. Starting in verse 9. And Moses took the rod from before the Lord, as God commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock. And he said unto them, Hear now, ye rebels, must we fetch you water out of the rock? Now again, I've got the imagery that he's probably, just so that everybody can see and hear, that he's up on the rock. He's elevated himself above the people. Doesn't tell us that, but it's not hard to believe. That would have been the best way for him to communicate this whole thing. But notice right away, his words are not words speaking to a rock. His words are harsh words speaking to these people. Stiff-necked and hard-hearted. Doesn't tell us that, but I'm sure that's what Moses is thinking. And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice. And the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beasts also. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, Because ye believed me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. Okay, we'll stop there. Verse 13, let me finish it there. This is the water of Meribah, because the children of Israel strove with the Lord, and he was sanctified in them. All right. So Moses, obviously frustrated, angry, recognizing again the stiff-necked, impatient people, the words he says, there's no place in this where God calls them rebels for complaining, but Moses concludes that's what they are. But I want you to notice the subtlety of what he says. They gathered the congregation, verse 10, together before the rock, and he said unto them, Hear now, ye rebels, must we fetch you water out of this rock? What's he saying? What? Okay. What did you say, Mike? Yeah. That's what I think too, is he's saying, you rebellious people. Laura, a thought? It is. He is angry. Okay, very good. Yeah, his anger has blinded him. It's frustration perhaps, but it is also rage almost. I mean, that's kind of the image I get, Frank.
I think in his anger, he elevated himself above God before the people. He didn't honor God.
I totally believe, and God says that, doesn't he? Because what? We've said it. We've seen his hot temper a few times, yes. But this time he acts out in a way different than any other time. Because go ahead, April. Yep. Okay. Yeah, there could be part of that, but certainly I do believe that his attitude affected his actions and even maybe blinded him from doing what he knew he was supposed to do. Yeah, and that's the takeaway. You all caught it when I read it there at the end of verse 10. Hear now, ye rebels, must we fetch you water out of this rock? Almost like what Scott and Mike said, that it's Aaron and Moses. He's almost implying he's the one that's going to do this. And at least he is not elevating God being the one that does it. And then in this frustration, this anger, he takes this rod and pop, pop. Twice he hits this thing. God, still being gracious, gushes forth water, right? The water comes out of the rock. That's what they needed. God provided it. And the people, immediately see this abundance of water, and the congregation drank, and so did their beasts also. But what was missed by the congregation, because all of a sudden their water need was satisfied, was not missed by God because of Moses and Aaron's disobedience. The inference that they were trying to take credit for this thing, and it was all of God. Water doesn't come out of rocks unless God does it. And yet Moses, in its lapse of faith, disobeyed. And that disobedience had a consequence for Moses and Aaron. It's interesting. God had said after the 12 spies that all of the people 20 years and older would die in the wilderness. They would never go in and occupy, except Caleb and Joshua, the two spies with the good report. He doesn't include Moses and Aaron in that. He does not guarantee that Aaron and Moses will lead the children in. And part of it is, I think, that this is going to be the coup de grace, if you will, sealing Moses and Aaron's fate, that they disobeyed in this incident, And God now says they would not be able to go in and see the in fact, he'll say later, Moses, I'm going to let you see it. I've been to Mount Nebo. It's the high point. Jebel Musa, the mountain of Moses in the Arabic. But Mount Nebo overlooks the Dead Sea, and you can see on a clear day, I've been on Mount Nebo where there was no haze or anything. You can see all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, 50 miles away. You can see all the way up to the north, Mount Hermon with snow on the top. And you can see all the way down to the southern Negev where they were at in the wilderness. Moses was going to be allowed to see the whole thing. But because of this disobedient act, he is not going to be able to go in. All right. Laura, I saw your hand. Did you have another comment? Yeah. Yeah. There's truth to that. It's borne out in the scriptures that Moses gets to the point of just being frustrated. You remember there was a time, and we didn't study it directly, but there was a time where God just said, you know, Moses, these people, I'm going to teach them a lesson. I'm going to start a whole new nation with you, Moses. I'm just going to... And Moses interceded on the people's behalf. Now, God wasn't going to do that, but he sure passed that test, Moses did, because Moses begged and interceded on behalf of the people that God not do that. Then there comes a time where Moses is ready for these people to be wiped out. And God said, yeah, we're not going to do that. But, I mean, he gets so frustrated. Yeah, it's kind of culminating in this episode too. Okay, time's up, but I just want you to think about, first of all, when difficult circumstances happen, and they will in every one of our lives. Scott and I were talking about how hard this time of the year is for our families and others that have gone through terrible ordeals, and yet those are the tests that make us either draw closer to God or pull back. And this circumstance, when God saw this action of the people, he had a plan, and Moses and Aaron did the right thing by going to God first. God gave them the plan. This is what I want you to do. But I want you to do it to sanctify me before the people. Right? Said that twice. God wanted the people to rejoice in who God was and give him the glory, sanctify God for bringing water out of a rock. And then Moses, in his anger, almost intimates that we will do this, me and Aaron. And God said, because you did not sanctify me before the people, you will not go in and see the land of promise. You will not occupy it with the rest. Okay, so I just think the lesson to learn is we've got to go. Our time is up. Disobedience leads to heartache. Obedience leads to God's blessing, and he is sanctified with the blessings. Okay? Thank you. God bless. Have a great day. We'll see you. I don't want Pastor to say anything to me about keeping you too long.